Rita Riker here, President of the Board of Focus Greater Syracuse, and welcome to our Focus Forum. This year, we're once again using our January forum to hear from you to help us identify and consider topics for future forums. We held this session last year, and the ideas generated prompted us to host several forums on housing, as that was a particularly hot topic. We also hosted a forum on community grid and held a hybrid forum at the Salt City Market, among other things. So in terms of our process today, several of you have already submitted suggestions for future topics. Thank you. We'll call on many of you to briefly introduce your recommended topic, including who you might like to hear from on the topic, not necessarily a name, maybe just an organization or title. If you have a topic that you'd like us to consider that hasn't been mentioned, please use the chat button at the bottom of your screen. Board member Brian Hoke and I will be monitoring the chat. Because we need help prioritizing, at the end of the session, we are going to ask you to list in the chat the topic most of interest to you. So a few ground rules for this format. Please mute your audio when you're not speaking so that we don't hear any background noise. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand using the Zoom raise hand feature or simply raise your hand, and we will try to accommodate as much interaction as possible. And as always, we ask that you be respectful of everyone's opinions. As usual, we're scheduled for 1 hour today, and we'll be recording today's session. So now let me turn it over to board member Brian Hoke to lead our discussion.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. Wonderful that so many people here to come to give back rather than consume forum. You know, we don't have a speaker. We're asking you to share your ideas about what you'd like to see. And as Rita mentioned, we have listened, right? The forums that we have delivered over the last couple of years came in large part from ideas and the sort of wishes and support of folks in these similar meetings in January's past. So thanks very much for being here. Just a note, we are recording this. We'll make it available on our website later, but it's certainly helpful to us to go back and see what people had said. So thanks to everybody for being here. Thanks to everybody who submitted ideas already. And I'll call on people if you're comfortable sharing your idea, great. I'll call on somebody perhaps to start, and then folks can raise their hand or put something in the chat. But we had a lot of ideas submitted already. Things like poverty and health equity, Hispanic and Latino population, lead poisoning, Micron, Interstate 81. So a broad range of topics, and we're looking to you today to advocate for the kind of things you'd like to see from focus forums this year. So if I may, I'll call on Dick Hiesel, who's somebody I haven't seen for quite a while. Dick, if you're comfortable, yours was an especially positive suggestion. If you're comfortable sharing it, and nice to see you, by the way. Thanks for being here, and share your suggestion if you would, sir.
All right, thank you, Brian. Good to see you. Good to see you and all the others on this Zoom call. My idea has to do with what we sometimes in Syracuse find that we puzzle over ways of going about finding out how to go forward to address an issue or a problem in the city or in the region or in the community. This comes out of my own experience as in running a research company. And I'm sure, Rita, you've had similar experiences, that there are, when we're looking for solutions, we often fail to look around us to see what the solutions are right within our community. So my proposal has to do with best practices. How do we go about first identifying what we really do well in Syracuse? How do we identify those things that can be exported to other communities that we want to brag about? My experience with tiny homes, for example, demonstrates that we have a solution for homing the unsheltered through tiny homes that is very different from any other tiny home development in other parts of the country. And we ought to be exporting that. That's just a clear example from my experience. there are many other experiences that we do well at in Syracuse. And I want us to be able to identify those things that we do well and pass them on. In the same way, I think we ought to be looking at what are promising practices elsewhere that can be applied to sticky issues that we have in central New York. I especially want to address gun violence, of course, but there are many other issues too. What communities are doing the best work around the country? And we ought to be exploring that. So that's in a nutshell, that's my idea.
Well, I appreciate that. It is a bit of a Coles to Newcastle statement to say, folks here, we need to be more positive about the region, right? I mean, the folks, we're cherry picking the folks who are already positive about the region. But I think there is this kind of community feeling of, oh, things aren't good here. You know, and I think your idea of highlighting what is already working well is great. Would be a very positive experience, as we hope most of these focus fora are. Before we get to another topic, does anybody want to come in on that idea, to expand on it, give any other thoughts? All right, very good. Dick, thanks for that suggestion. Who would
You're
like
welcome.
to share another one? Anybody have I certainly have the ones we've received in advance that I can call on somebody, but anybody want to raise a hand right now or put something in chat that we can discuss? I see, is it Teresa Hargrave had submitted something on chat? Would you like to speak up?
Mabel Wilson had a
Oh.
comment, maybe. Sorry.
Yeah, please, Mabel, go ahead. Mabel, I think you're on mute. If you'd like to unmute and share your idea, we'd love to hear it.
Come in. Hi.
Hi, Mabel. You're cutting out a little bit. Sorry, Mabel, we're not hearing you.
The little girl was shot.
Yeah.
Not too far from me, and
Yeah.
and that brought tears to my eyes. And that's in my community. I live in Pioneer Homes, and I almost said we get used to it. And in some ways, I don't want. In a lot of ways, I don't want to get used to it, because sometimes when it's warm, that's what I hear outside my window, or when I have my grandchildren over. So there's got to be something done about that. And then sometimes I do hear some of the rumblings, oh, Syracuse is no good, and I want to leave. But I think a lot of the majority of the people that I hang around with, I'm going to be 73 on Monday, but a lot of the young people that I know that I associate with Salsa of Syracuse here, and Syracuse Growth, which I was one of the.
Sorry, maybe you cut out again, but let's give it just a second and see if it comes back.
Past in Syracuse and into the present, like the community grid. I want to see the Focus Syracuse video of the community grid information, because I'm still not having some understanding of that right now. But what I wrote into Focus is I look at HGTV and I look at some of the abandoned housing we have on the south side and on other parts of Syracuse, Onondaga County. Is there some type of way we can do something like bargain block, where we can have contractors that can come in, that can take these young women and men, teach them carpentry, electrical, and what have you, skills to fix up these abandoned houses or almost down to the ground houses and reintroduce them into the various parts of our housing situation within Onondaga County. That is one of my main concerns when I first came here to Syracuse, because I was amazed and still am amazed of some of the architecture here, even agriculture too. That's another part of my life, but those are my concerns.
Got it. Well, thank you, Mabel. I mean, great ideas from sadly gun violence to housing to entrepreneurship to jobs. Are there folks you think would make sense to be speakers? Anybody you know that would make sense that we could say, hey, we're organizing a forum on one of these topics. Somebody you could suggest who you think would be good for the community to hear from on any of those topics.
Andrew Lunetta is always a great speaker on the issue of tiny homes.
Got it. Okay. Thanks, Dick. And sorry, somebody, oh, Hugo, do you want to come in on that? Please.
Yes, I first of all, thanks for having me today.
Thanks for being here.
I was hoping not to make this a controversial request, but I was planning to introduce members of the Latino community, specifically what we call leaders, where I was hoping that in those meetings that you guys run very often, and I've been participating, as you can see probably in the computer data, is very educational, very informative, and very helpful. But I would like to see a little bit more diversity, because in some meetings and some getting togethers that I have with Latinos, they don't know much about it. So, and I will be more than happy to assist you guys to promote these particular meetings, at least to those leaders and some of the members of the local community in Syracuse. They don't even know about this source of sharing information. And they probably will give you guys, whoever organizes the topics and the speakers, I'll give you a bit more incentive about participation from minorities, not necessarily the Latino community, but also other ethnic groups. So that's why I'm here. You were asking for leaders. I'll be more than glad to send you a small list of local Latino leaders, including Rita Paniagua, which is part of the Common Council, I believe. Fanny Villarreal, who's very influenced and very participating in some social issues, especially now with strategies that we have with kids being shot and things like that, and a few others. I'm not going to take the time just to name it. I'll be more than glad to send you a list, and that is the reason why I'm here.
Hugo, thank you. Just send that list to Jessica and to me.
That'd be great.
We'll be happy to have it.
And
Okay.
Hugo, are there particular topics that you would see that you personally
I
would
would
favor?
like to have that list also.
Okay, great. Well, we can certainly share it among the community. But Hugo, are there particular topics that you see rising above other topics as, you know, boy, this would be great to address, that not only addresses sort of Latino concerns or others, but I don't know, I'd be interested in your thoughts about more specifics.
There are a few topics. Some of them are very similar to what we can see in other media outlets, in the local newspaper and the local TV shows and stuff like that. One of the things that I believe the local Latino community would like to know more is about the different type of diversity programs or plans that the city of Syracuse or any other organization, not necessarily something that it has to be provided as an assistance or as a help the poor and stuff like that, but other things that might be an incentive for them to get involved, a little bit, probably a little bit more recognition of the different Latino businesses that are in here. I try to involve people from the Center State CEO to do some emphasis on that, which, by the way, they have responded. I'm not going to use this venue to complain or place any negative issues at all. But again, along with that list of Latino leaders, I could probably put together a few things that I heard from them that they probably would like to see exposed. And then again, my hope is that if this is being established, then those Latino leaders, which by the way, I'm planning to convince them to participate also in the meetings and then get involved in all these different themes and projects.
Got it. Thank you, Hugo. Peter McCarthy, you put a note in chat that I think in some ways connects. There's a through line between Hugo's comments and your interest in hearing about the Micron project. Would you, sir, like to share your thoughts?
Sure. I think there are a huge number of issues associated with the Micron project that affect the whole region. And I'm not optimistic about the capacity of our county government to deal with those in a way that addresses the needs of all of the people in the county. It's my understanding, I don't have a source for this, that the county has refused or neglected to update its sustainability plan for many years. And interest in issues of environmental justice, the environment in general, and housing, transportation, and equity don't ever seem to be at the top of the list of county government. And I think this relates to the one-party dominance in county government, which is a reflection of the badly gerrymandered districts that have been in place for a while. So I think all of those issues, I know it's a lot, are all mixed up together, but I think I'm kind of shocked that there's a picture of a multi-acre factory, a rough drawing, and the roof's not covered with solar panels. I get all my electricity from my solar panels on my roof, and there's no reason we should allow a factory to be built that's not creating its own energy. That's just one example. So I think a lot of issues there, Micron and all those issues, but the context of who does the county government represent?
Got it. All right. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Teresa, you have raised your hand. I apologize for ignoring it for so long, but please.
Okay. I would like to share a lens which is usually not put in place in meetings such as this. And this is the lens of the child.
Okay.
And how do we look at all these things that we're thinking about in terms of how they are going to affect our youngest children. The science of brain development tells us that the brain does its greatest growth and sets the stage for whatever it's going to do thereafter during pregnancy and by age 5. We need to make sure that the resources of this community will help to build better brains here, and to make sure that we pay attention to, from the county budget to the state budget to the federal budget that's coming in, that we push for the things that we know from science, increase resiliency as opposed to creating adverse environments that make brains less able to calm themselves down when there's a stress, like anger at another person that a gang has, and quickly pulling the trigger rather than thinking about what the consequences might be for that action. The autonomic arousal system is set in place at birth and can be modified in terms of how quickly it responds to a stimulus and how quickly it shuts the system down so that the arousal doesn't continue. And during pregnancy, it's the experience of the mother that that controls that. But after the baby is born, it's the community, starting with the family and how stable we can make families. And housing is a great big one in this. And getting people with children out of poverty. And some of what the president's recovery plan during COVID really helped that. And there are data to demonstrate that, but now we're stopping that. How can we bring that back to our community?
Teresa, that's a fascinating topic. And are there local experts on brain development or early childhood education, or others that work in policy fields or government fields? Anybody you can recommend who you think, boy, I know this person and she or he would be great at this?
I'm pretty good at it.
Fair enough.
There's a group called the Early Childhood Alliance that has been in place for about 10 years, that has done remarkable work. And thinking about Richard Hiesel's challenge, what do we do well in this community? And the work of the Early Childhood Alliance over the last 10 years is one of those things. And our commissioner, our county commissioner has really supported that. However, the money that comes in to the programs comes a lot from federal government money as it filters down through the states.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyway, brain development. I've particularly paid attention to that, I guess.
Okay.
And there's a game called the Brain Architecture game, which I would be eager to play with groups of you, that really is based on research, brain research, and adversities and resiliency promoting experience, and brings it together in a way that is really fun. And I would suggest our leaders play it. And I and Tara Pinkowski, who's newly at Liberty Resources, can help people do that or shepherd it. I have the materials and the license to do it.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you for that. And thanks, Frank and Sarah, for mentioning Lori Black, who heads up the Early Childhood Alliance, Meg O'Connor, the Allen Family Foundation, who supports those efforts as well. So thanks everybody for chipping in on the chat, and Teresa for your comments. I want to move to Denny, who's had his hand up for quite a while. If we could switch to you, sir. I don't know if you want to come in at this topic or a new one. But
no, this is actually, I just wanted to compliment Teresa on what she was talking about, because development, whether it's mental, spiritual, or physical, begins at birth, and however one wants to term where that happens. But I was lucky enough to, I think somebody taught me from the time I was conceived, I hope. I'm a business person. I'm also the president of a group called Sustainable Syracuse, the Sustainable Upstate Network was what we used to be. And I have this thing about the 3 E's. It's the environment and ecology, equity, and economics, and they're all supported by education. That's the 4th E. And I think Mabel was talking about young folks, and whether they're in an urban setting or a rural setting, having the promise of a good job, and whether it's Micron or other things, her idea about the trades. Every trade in Central New York is looking for people, and educators. We're looking for kids to become teachers. We're looking for people to become nurses. We're looking for accountants. We're looking for labor, and when you look at the environment and ecology, excuse me, one of the reasons Micron and other companies are coming here is because the environment and the ecology. One of the reasons that Syracuse grew from a little salt city in Solar Street to where we are today is the environment and technology. Equity is both social, it's education, it's economic, it's housing, it's food, all of those things. And then people and businesses often don't change if the economics don't pay for itself or don't find a way to be balancing between the two or three. And I spoke to Rita the other day. Those are sort of the 3 or 4 things that I believe are very key as we go forward. We have a great community here. There's Micron could have gone a lot of places. There's a lot of companies that are here that are looking at this region. And it's because of it's a great place to live. It's a 20-minute town. We have water. I mean, you know, we can be blue on a gray day like today because it's like, oh, it's just Syracuse weather. It's wet. But there's so much promise in our community that I think we need to focus on those things. And, you know, with that, the gun violence and those types of things, that's about education. It's about giving people promise to go forward. So that's what I wanted to contribute. I'm really here to listen to everybody else and gain an idea of what other people's thoughts are. So thank you for letting me speak.
No, that's great. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Mabel, did you want to come in?
Yes, just what Dave has just said. I would like to piggyback off of him with what he just said about the environment, economy, and ecology. What I'm having some issue with or trying to plant the seed here by living in pioneer homes is growing the community, the Emoja SHA community gardens here, because I helped start the West Newell Street community gardens on with Mary Marquis some years ago. And why I see this importance is that it's food equity within our community at Pioneer Homes. Now, the economic thing, what I've been trying to find out, with Micron coming here and other green spaces like I've been hearing, and before this young little girl got killed, I've been trying to find out where is our green space going to be when they so-called, I'm saying so-called because I really don't know, when they said they're going to tear down our housing. I'm going to be 73 on Monday, but I would like to have my legacy and the legacy of us senior citizens and grandparents that are raising our grandkids or what have you. Where's the green space going to be for our new residents, our new communities? That's important to us. How can we use the Emoja community garden to make that an economic base? How can we also use that from pre-K to high school or what have you, learning about the STEAM program with the ecology?
Maybe you cut out. Go ahead, please. Yeah, Mabel, sorry, your audio cut out.
One of the ideas, if we got the farm, we got all these green areas of growth now, how can we sell our products to some of these restaurants downtown and not supporting our members here in this community and the other communities on the outskirts? And how can Mike Ron sit down with us in the coffee house here and JMA that's here? Sit with us. All the stuff we hear on TV and stuff, like Hugo said, the Latin, I'm having a hard time.
Maybe your audio cut out again. I don't know if you can hear me. We'll give it just a second.
The city of Onondaga County, let's get us together on the grassroots level. I like what Focus is doing, but come here to my coffee house and talk to us. I'm on the tennis association. I don't do techie too much, but I can give you my phone number. We can set up a time to talk about some of this stuff.
Gotcha.
We're left out of the conversation, and I'm butting my head.
Got it. Well, thank you, Mabel, for sharing those thoughts. I appreciate that. Appreciate everybody's thoughts. Moving on to
Yeah, and just Mabel, why don't you send me your contact information as well as Jessica, and we'll follow up.
You gotta send me yours because I don't know how to do all that stuff on the computer. But if you send me your phone, I can call, or I can.
We'll do that.
315-299. Huh?
go ahead.
Okay.
315-299-4547. And then after we talk, I'll figure out how to do it technically.
Sounds good.
Hi, Miss Mabel. This is Tara. Miss Mabel, any questions that you have in regards to the green space and all that? I know you attended several meetings when they were talking about that, but you can give me a call if you have any more unanswered questions about that.
Okay, Tara, I would like to talk to you too.
Okay, that's
All-
fine. So after this meeting, we can talk offline so they can just continue their agenda.
Yeah, and
All
Tara,
right,
you can share.
all
with
right,
me
thank you.
The phone number that Mabel shared with us. Well, great, building connections.
Okay,
I
thank
wanna move
you.
on to another, thank you, Mabel, for sharing your thoughts. A few people mentioned in the topics submitted in advance, the issue of lead abatement, right? The danger that lead, early houses, lead-based paint poses to children. Would anybody, given that that was a repeated topic, a few people have even put it in the chat today, would anybody right now like to share some thoughts on how such a topic would be a good focus forum? Anyone? Sarah?
So I think that there's a lot more going on about lead than people understand. I think, Syracuse, because of the age of the infrastructure, we have a lot of lead poisoning, but we also are doing a lot about it. And I don't think that message is getting out in the news. It's, that sort of boring infrastructure stuff that is not so exciting to reporters. I think there's somebody from the Onondaga County Health Department would certainly be an appropriate speaker, but I think there's people maybe in the construction trades or other people who could just talk about how complicated the abatement can get so that people understand why it's not going faster. And I see other people want to speak, so I'll stop.
Yeah, Peter, I'll get you. Thanks for raising your hand. I'll get to you in 1 second. But Sarah, I'll ask you this, and then Peter, I can put it to you. It's a federally funded, right? The Healthy Homes program. The auspices here used to be under the city, and now I think is a county program. Is that right?
I think it's a joint. I think they're implementing it jointly.
Okay, gotcha. But Peter, you wanted to come in on this, please.
Yes, briefly, just the one part of the soil lead concern that people may not realize is the high lead content in soils in Syracuse, and this has been documented by years of study by a chemist at ESF, Dr. David Johnson. And I could send anybody a bibliography on this, but there are speakers, possibly not locally, but nearby at Cornell, who could come and talk about this. And there are ways to address soil and lead that actually the county is starting to take a crack at. And there's things you can do, like New York City has what you call a clean soil bank, where they establish from say compost or manufactured soil, a ready soil resource for homeowners who want to cap the soils in their yard, which is probably the best method of dealing with lead in soils. So just a thought.
Cool. Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to come in on the issue of lead? Mabel, you have your hand up, please. Mabel, we're not hearing you. Mabel, you're on mute. Thank
Okay, about some years ago, Peter, you was there when the West Knoll Street was getting started. We had lead in our soil down there, and somehow or another made a complaint, and it went somehow all the way another to the New York Times. And then the mayor at that time, Mayor Bernardi, come to find out the city itself was giving residents here contaminated topsoil for their gardens. So there was a lot of research done with ESF, Matthew Puttiker and the like. And we come to find out like how we remediated our area down there with the lead soil area, lead that was in parts of our garden spot. We was to plant spinach. And then when it grew, we took it and put it in paper bags, brown paper bags, but we couldn't put it in the garbage because it was contaminated. So there was a lot of history done in the city of Onondaga County about where we were getting our topsoil from. And my grandsons also had lead poisoning in the apartment my daughter had. This is years ago too. So there's a history of lead in Syracuse because of the lead paint that was used and the gasoline that was used in the history of the United States.
Got it. Thank you, Mabel, for sharing that. Bob Haley, you have your hand up, sir?
Yeah, so thank you. I just want to reiterate the two comments recently. Mabel's, well, everybody's comment about lead. Lead's part of obviously environmental safety and hazardous waste, oils, and a history that's a city that's 200 years old has had that many years of industry in the center of the city. So there are many, many sites that have cleanup needs. We hear about those periodically. What I'm saying that Peter McCarthy and Peter King were suggesting is that we don't have, and we should add this to our topics, a disciplined scientific methodology for addressing and mitigating these sites. Now, this is available, and many times there's funding available that is missed, the federal funding or state funding, that is missed by local governments. So what I'm trying to clarify here, I'm not doing it very well, is that our local governments, city and county, need to have scientific and disciplined methodology for mitigating and getting and cleaning our environment. Everybody's speaking to the environment. It comes with the soil under our feet and the air we breathe. So I'm advocating, and you're right about the county sustainability plan. It hasn't been updated, and not only hasn't it been updated, but it is not disciplined by the county to the towns and villages. So one of these issues in a demanding future is how can we get more disciplined accuracy and response from city and county governments with funds for the people's basic environmental health? And I'll leave it at that as a topic.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
To see if we can cover a few more diverse topics. Carol Eaton, I see you're here, and you had posted an interest in tourism, which it sounds like is an industry perhaps you work in. Would you care to share your thoughts?
Sure, thank you. I would love to.
Thank you.
And thank you for having me. I see some familiar names and faces here, but not a lot. So I feel privileged to be part of this group. The reason I brought this up was because I recently participated in a group called the Travel Unity Summit, which was an event held in the Finger Lakes region, which we helped to sponsor. And it stressed the importance of developing collectively as a community, a warm and welcoming community for all visitors. Here in Onondaga County, our visitor industry right now generates approximately $800 million a year. And as many of you learned and saw, the hospitality industry was extremely hard hit during COVID on all levels. So coming through that and out of that, I would like to emphasize that there's a tremendous amount of opportunity for our younger people, to learn and grow within our current hospitality industry. And not just the bigger jobs, the big hotels, but a good hotel is only as good as its team. And its team is more than just the general manager or the salespeople. It's the front desk clerks, it's the housekeepers. And that is what welcomes people to your community to spend money with outside dollars. They come here, they spend their money, and they leave, and they help generate sales tax. So alongside that, we also run the Visit Syracuse Film Office. And we've seen how movies have been growing here in upstate New York based on the tax incentives put in place by New York State. We're working very closely with the STEAM School to build a training program for crew associated with film and television production. And all of that can happen on all levels. So when the county was pitching Micron, a lot of what we're seeing too is that not just the engineering level of employees that will come here, but anyone who else will be part of that growth is visiting our visitsyracuse.com website to learn why they should consider moving here. So one of our goals for 2023 is to build an ambassador program, an ambassador group, to invite others to come forth with us as we work every day to try to promote and sell our great community. And all of the challenges that were presented here earlier are certainly of paramount interest to get to work on. But with that, as long as we are capable to tell the world that a great place to live is a great place to visit, and we certainly are a great place to live, despite the challenges presented here today. So I do have some thoughts. Hi, Donna. Donna's been with us on this ride for many, many years in a variety of capacities to get that word out there. So I do have some extra or additional speakers that I think would be good, not just from the Visit Syracuse team, but those within the hospitality industry who are seeing direct results of how it has helped them rebuild their businesses. So with that, I'm open to any other conversation about it.
Very good. Donna, did you want to, thank you, Carol, for sharing that. Donna, did you want to share any thoughts on the topic?
Oh, sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. Oh,
Yeah.
I wanted to acknowledge and just endorse what Carol's saying. I know how important it is. So I was just waving hello to her. Sorry.
Very good. All right. Thank you. And I see Denny is volunteering for the ambassadors group. So, connections.
Great.
Again. Yeah, that's cool.
Just real quick. She mentioned the film industry. That's an attractive thing for the community. I actually worked for Matt Driscoll and had the privilege of starting the first film office here way back when, and to see it, growing now with the films that are happening here with the Liverpool place. The challenge back then, there was only about 14 people in the IATSE group, and they're all in Buffalo and Rochester. So if you made a film in Syracuse, you had to bring people in from New York City. It was $300 a day per diem. You couldn't make the film. I believe now there's, 70 or 80 people in the region working in that industry. And that's an example of a small industry that didn't exist 20 years ago today that is having a major impact in our community. So whether it's community gardens, like Mabel said, and how do we, the lack of food in some of our neighborhoods because it's not profitable to have a grocery store there. We need, that's part of the whole picture. I obviously eat well. So, but that's a big part. Travel, the Finger Lakes, we have the, Lake Ontario and the Adirondacks. These are all selling points for our community that we need to really push forward, I think, to continue to grow.
Gotcha. Cool.
And the bottom line on that is that
Please.
it adds to the tax base.
Yep.
And that's where monies can be redirected appropriately to continue to grow the community, as we'd like to see that happen.
Got it. Very good. Teresa, you had your hand up earlier. Would you like to come back in?
Yes, on the issue of lead paint,
Mhm.
And the importance of its sustainability, because Syracuse is an old city with lead paint everywhere, and we're going to have to deal with it with each generation. In terms of soil, the city of Boston, when I was living there as a resident, did got rid of the soil down to the depth that they measured that lead was present, and carted it off, and put lead-free soil around. And the problem of lead poisoning still remain because of there's the lead paint, there's the lead dust in the houses. That's really a more important source actually than soil. And if you cover soil with grass or even with weeds, it's much less of a source of exposure. So back in the day, maybe 20 years ago, when there was a push regarding lead, Syracuse Housing Authority pledged to maintain the grass around the houses that they subsidized. And also, I'm a little surprised. Most plants, at least what Cornell has taught me, most plants don't incorporate the lead in soil in themselves. There are a few that do. Spinach may be one of them, but most of them don't. So even if community gardens have lead soil, the exposure during planting and harvesting is much greater than the lead you're going to eat.
Got it. Thank you for sharing that. We don't have long left. I do want to get to a few more voices if we can. Frank Moses, we've not heard from you before. You have your hand up.
Hey,
Please.
Brian.
How are
Thanks
you?
so much. I'm doing well. Really nice to see a lot of familiar faces. And I'll be as brief as I can. I really wanted to take the opportunity to talk about and propose that there's a focus on efforts in sustaining a healthy water source for Syracuse. And I think historically at focus forums, we talked about infrastructure. Sam Edelstein talked about the aging pipes. But what would be great is to see there's a City of Syracuse water department out here in Skaneateles, which is the source. It's really the lifeblood source to Syracuse in terms of an economic driver. And we've looked at Skaneateles as a clean water source historically. It's one of the cleanest water sources in the country and continues to be so. But at the same time, we're facing all these emerging threats, even from the 1950s when we started purging more fertilizer and nutrients into our farms. Those nutrients are coming down. We're seeing things change with climate change, the warming of the water. We're seeing invasive species come into the water, and we're seeing land management decisions. Talk about the pandemic having an impact. The real estate is going crazy out here, and the development and all these stresses and the need to make wise choices with the land around this water source that, we have good bagels, good wood-fired bagels in Syracuse because we have good water. We have great breweries. The hospitals have clean water, but it's about sustaining that. We've been blessed to have clean water, but we're working hard with the City of Syracuse, soil water conservation districts. ESF is involved. Certainly, I'd be happy to talk about the Skaneateles Lake Association, the DEC. We just voted in New York State for $4.2 billion through an Environmental Bond Act that includes watershed resiliency, trying to curb climate change, buying more land to protect our waters, and to have green jobs for disadvantaged communities. We're losing hemlock trees out here where we need more treatment professionals to protect those trees. And I think that we think about City of Syracuse and economic opportunity through jobs and green jobs, but I would love to see all these training opportunities to take care of our water source and having green jobs and caring for waters like Skaneateles that support the drinking water to connect that. We are starting to do that. This is an example of we have the experiential learning middle school, Elms, out, 57 seventh graders from Syracuse to talk about there's a diversity gap in geosciences. So we wanted to connect them to, we had Dr. Bahram Salehi from ESF flying drones. We had them out to the Fesco Farms, one of the largest dairy farms in Onondaga County. We had Anchor QEA engineers that did work on Onondaga Lake cleanup, but are doing some of these watershed improvement projects to show that there is a job path and training for more diversity in that. So there's just so much to share, and I could go on and on, but I won't. But I hearing what Hugo talked about for diversity, the importance of our ecosystem ecology. From a panelist standpoint, I think we could have folks from City of Syracuse Water Department. I absolutely volunteer from the Lake Association to talk about what we're doing and mobilizing the community to care for these different projects we're involved with. The DEC coming from what they're doing with, and I think Central Regional Planning Development Board's a little bit with DEC related to what's known as the 9-element plan, which we're going through this planning to bring in more resources to the community to care for our lakes. So Amy Klinkhammer with the DEC, Amy did a lot with Onondaga Lake. Folks might remember working with her on the cleanup and as a representative of DEC. She's now with the Finger Lakes Hub and is our DEC rep for Skaneateles Lake. So we've got some really good, solid panelists to look at how the source of the City of Syracuse's water is being taken care of, and to celebrate that good water from a positive standpoint, but also to share that we are seeing threats, but we have this resource that's kind of out of sight, out of mind, but it is very much a part of the Syracuse community, and just would be excited to talk about that. The other thing with the City of Syracuse is there.
Frank, I want to get to one more.
Yeah, I know.
gotta
One
be
last
quick,
thing.
please.
I've taken 4 minutes, and I know there's been other speakers, but there is the pipe extension. So there's the American Rescue Plan funding that is paying for the City of Syracuse pipe extension that's going to be active. So that could be another thing that could be shared with the community. That's the last thing I wanted to share. Thanks, Brian.
That's great. Well, thank you, Frank, a longtime and valued friend of Focus Greater Syracuse. I appreciate
Absolutely. And to add in, we'll share some stuff for Citizens Academy to add into the water stuff for that.
Great.
So happy to
always much
provide
appreciated.
resources there. Great.
Peter, I know we want to leave a little time for people to vote on their choices, but Peter, you had your hand up and you've been very patient. If you could be quick, sir, your last thought.
Sure. I definitely agree with Frank on the green jobs, the green innovations. I mean, back in the day, Onondaga County was recognized for Save the Rain nationwide, I think. So I mean, there's something to build on there. I wanted to comment on the potential for something called equitable transit-oriented development, which sounds really tactical, but is basically about producing. Already, we've had Owen Kearney and the Syracuse, the Onondaga County Planning Agency guy, I forget his name.
Mm-hmm.
I do a forum here on transit-oriented development, which is fairly straightforward. It's basically building housing and businesses around transit. So you support the transit, and then in turn, the transit support the businesses. Well, so there's yes, Dan Kozlowski. So as there's been studies in the past, say 10 years ago, looking at some of the more successful long-running transit systems in America. And the problem is a successful transit may put itself out of business because it literally raises the wealth in a neighborhood and also can cause gentrification if you put a transit-oriented development in just as market rate housing. So what an equitable TOD does is ensure a certain percentage of that is affordable housing, is guaranteed affordable housing. The city of Chicago has just passed an ETOD ordinance. There's several locations nationwide that are doing ETOD, and it's basically what they found is that
Peter, I'm sorry, Peter, I gotta cut you off. I appreciate that topic, and I wish we could talk about it longer, but we got to leave time for people to vote on some topics. So I want to make sure we get to that, but we'll put that on the list.
Just to wrap this up, I did send Jessica Lisi just a short, one pager on this, and I would be glad to further discuss this, or we could talk about experts, or we could just talk to our own planning team like Owen Kearney and so on.
That's great.
Thank you.
Appreciate your feedback. Appreciate everybody's feedback. Rita, do you want to talk about?
Yes, so now it's time, as you know, we've only touched on a few of the topics that people had previously provided us. And so we need some help in prioritizing. We basically do these forums on a monthly basis. What I'd like everybody to do is just in the chat, the topic that you think is highest priority for you. That'll help us think through how to prioritize all the topics that we've heard. And we'll also share how important these topics are with others who may also be providing information to the community. So it's not just for us that this information is being gathered. So please, in the chat, as you have time, we'll leave the chat open for a bit. And in the meantime, I want to thank everybody for being here and for everybody who's sharing so graciously their interest in topics. It's just amazing to me the kinds of things that people are interested in, and how strongly people feel about making this community even better. So I really appreciate that. As with all our forums, we'll be posting this on our website in the next few days. So you can look for that if you have people who would like to join and listen to the conversation. And we also always appreciate any donations people would like to give to our organization. We have a very tiny budget, and we're doing the best we can with it. And I'll always appreciate donations. Those can be easily made on our website. So beyond that, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to seeing you at future forums. Thank you so much for your input.